If it helps you to tape the dart closed, you can do that. After a while, you won't need to. Okay, that shape is a little bit different than what I had originally. That's why it's important to close the dart and blend a new armhole so that once the dart is closed, this will sew nicely with your sleeve. Okay, I'm going to show you why it's important that you square the seam allowance. I have a basic block. It has seam allowance added. We're squaring the seam allowance so that when you're putting stitch line on top of stitch line, you end up with a nice curve. If you don't square it, you could end up with something like this, where you have a peak, or you could end up with something like this, where you have a really sharp V, and then your seam allowance doesn't extend to the edge where you're going to be sewing. And that's true with any curve. Same thing with the armhole. It's squared, so you can see there, that will go nicely. Again, we don't want something sewing where we end up with a point that way, and we don't want something where we end up with the point that way. So after you've done your pattern, you can go back and you can put stitch lines on top of stitch lines to see what shapes they make. Because on all of these, we're looking for nice blended curves. And I'm only putting the things together that stitch together. So that's another very important part when you're blending and you're making a pattern. Go back and check your work. Don't just assume that you can manipulate something and it's all going to walk and blend and look nice. Because once you manipulate it, you've changed it. So you have to go back and do some finessing. So that is how you add seam allowance, and that's why squaring is so very important. Thanks.